to The Weird and the Wonderful with Strange Bones.
Don't the scout cookies give you extra stamina?
And I hope everyone's doing fantastic today.
And plus we'll get the moral boost spirit.
And as we get going with the live, we are starting a new one tonight. And I think it's going to be fairly interesting, so hopefully you will all enjoy. But as we get started, I remind everybody that on this channel we make a point of saying that we have just one rule, and that is do not be rude. So if you are rude, we will give you the boot. But that said, you can agree, disagree with anything said. We do this entirely for our interest and personal amusement, and in no way do we necessarily support nor deride any of the things that we talk about. We merely put it out there as stuff so we can learn about what different people say about different things and for our own amusements. So I do hope you will enjoy all of it and comment greatly with your opinions as long as you are polite about it. You can agree and disagree, as I said, so comment lots, it helps the algorithm. Definitely send plenty of likes, because after all, they are free and they are at work to boost us. But for those of you who feel free to like, share, subscribe, do all of those things that help promote the channel. Send lots of gifts and do all of those good things as well. And with that, let's see what we can do to get started. Now, one of the very interesting things that we have come across in our foray into the strange, the different, and the paranormal is that many early beliefs out there are often the basis for our modern science, and we find that the effects on society, on early peoples, has prompted what has later on become great inventions and good science that we use today. And as somebody, and I forget entirely who it was, somebody once said, magic is simply science that we have not yet managed to explain. And one place where this is certainly very, very true, as we shall discover, is in the entire concept of alchemy. We find that modern science owes pretty much everything to ancient alchemy and the early attempts to do things which in many ways were somewhat dodgy by modern standards, or maybe not, who's to say, we shall find out. But absolutely we can see that it laid the groundwork for all of the good things that we have today. So we should be certainly grateful for it. And it's a very interesting topic to examine as well. So as we get into it, we will see that processes and ideas that were had led on to more and more scientific views of things, and it's lasted throughout the centuries. And it's come from a great many different places and cultures. We certainly see that it was strongest in certain places, but it picked up in others. And I think, to be fair, the interest in how the world works is something that is a fairly universal thing that absolutely has made it possible to improve life in general in pretty much every field that there is. So grab a good cup of coffee and let's get into the weird and the wonderful world of alchemy.
Is there an edge?
Now, you might say, where does even the word come from? And I think that it would be remiss not to point out that it absolutely comes from the ancient Arabic world. We have learnt what we have learnt because of a lot of the Arabic things, but in many ways the real beginning place was in fact Egypt. In ancient Alexandria, Hellenistic Egypt, so a mix of Egyptian and Greek of the time, from around the first millennium AD, blending Egyptian metallurgy and craft with Greek philosophy, such as the four elements, and religious ideas such as Hermeticism and Gnosticism, to seek transformation not just of metals into gold, but materials and spirit, and later spreading to the Islamic world, where we get our word alchemy from, al-khamia, and then on to medieval Europe, laying the groundwork for modern chemistry through practical technique, at least. So we see there that Hellenistic Egypt is the birthplace of
Or you can try it, still here.
Western alchemy from
I'm about to put it.
as early as the 1st century AD. It combined practical arts of metallurgy, dyeing, glass making and more, with philosophy and mysticism, and of course Hermeticism, which was influenced by the famous Hermes Trismegistus, promoting the spiritual transformation alongside material. Between the 8th and 12th centuries, it was very big in the Islamic Golden Age, where Islamic scholars preserved and advanced alchemical knowledge. The famous Gerber, as he is known, and Arazi, the proper pronunciation was lost to the Western world, but of course is remembered in the Arabic. So Jabir ibn Khayyam and al-Razi, the theory that they developed included a great deal of metallurgy, and it was believed for a long time that the combination of sulfur and mercury was the basis of all elements, and that everything could be transmuted through mercury and sulfur, which is pretty cool. Mickey, how are you? I hope that you are in fine and fabulous form and are doing exceptionally well. Thank you very much for the rose. I do appreciate it. Are you having a good evening? How are you feeling?
I'm okay, thanks. And you?
I'm good, thank you. It is tipping with rain outside. We've got a bit of a storm going on. So
Yeah, it's raining here a lot.
I assume it's raining by you as well.
Yeah,
It's
Quite a bit.
definitely the wet season.
yeah, but it's needed. It's been so hot the last few days.
Oh yeah, it has. And this morning was terrifyingly hot. Even though it was overcast, it was like so muggy and hot that you were sweating standing still. Not good at
Yeah.
all.
For sure.
It's one of them things. So do you have a good cup of coffee with you?
Yeah, got my coffee. My cool soda on my mug.
Ah, that is actually really cool. Anime. So the
Yeah.
question is, what do you know about alchemy?
I've only watched the Full Metal Alchemist.
That's pretty good enough. So
No, I
alchemy
don't.
is a very strange combination of magic and science, and it is of course through alchemy that we have modern chemistry. So we rely almost exclusively on alchemy as the basis of all modern science. So obviously it has developed a great deal further than the weird things that they started with into what we would call real science. But nevertheless, it is very, very interesting to see where it came from, why it became what it did, and what people actually thought. So that's the topic for tonight. So hopefully you will enjoy. Now we know that the word alchemy comes from the Islamic Golden Age, quite a long way in by a number of centuries from the beginning of alchemy. It was not called alchemy in the beginning. It was just sort of done. But it means alchemia, from the Greek word chaimeia, meaning melting or casting. And melting things together was the basis of a great deal of alchemy, to see if you could make stuff. And interesting facts. Are you a Potter fan?
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Okay, well, many of the things mentioned in Harry Potter are based on real history, including the Philosopher's Stone and the famous Nicholas Flamel. He was a real person.
Oh, really?
Yes,
That's
so
true.
hang on to this and you will find out more about the real man. So yeah, if you're a Potter fan, this is definitely going to be the theme for you. Now, in medieval Europe from the 12th century, of course, they took up a lot of the Islamic texts on alchemy and then ran further with it. The mystical aspects then were integrated with Christian theology by people like Albertus Magnus, but in many ways the focus shifted to the pursuit of the Philosopher's Stone, which was alleged at least to do two very important things. The first, you could transmute base metals into gold, which, weirdly enough, you can actually do.
Oh,
However, and the however is a really, 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 really big one. In order to do so, you will have to use nuclear fission to cause the lead to become gold, which means, yes, it will make gold, but it will be highly radioactive and you won't be able to touch it for several centuries. But it will be gold.
bummer.
Yeah, a little bit of a bummer. The second thing that it was supposed to do was make you immortal and possibly stand as a basis for the elixir of life. So, yeah, just like in Harry Potter. So, the aims were transmutation, the idea of changing base metal like lead into noble metals like gold and silver. It was also, more mundanely, used for creating dyes, medicines, cosmetics, soaps, and glass, which of course absolutely was taken forward into the modern day and is still done today. The basis of soap making, weirdly enough, my father was a detergent inorganic chemist, so he specialized in soap making, and he was one of the best in South Africa. He had a couple of very good, yeah. So making soaps, I can tell you, actually, while we use more refined materials nowadays, actually hasn't changed in its basic methodology from way back when. So, and it works, it does work.
Yeah, it's like my mom was telling me growing up on a farm, they made their own soap, but they
Yep,
made it out of pork fat, pork lard.
absolutely.
And she said
So,
the smell was like, ooh.
yeah, I know. You see, the reason that in the modern day we tend to use refined materials is exactly that.
Yeah, it's
Because,
thinking.
yeah, so the old method would be pork fat and lye, which you would make from ash, which will make a rather grubby looking soap that will stink like bacon. Really, what you want to do is to get an oil base that is purified so that
Yeah.
it has no smell, add in a suitable smell so it
Would,
smells
co-
nice.
would coconut oil be a good base for soap?
Yes, it would, but it's very expensive. So what you will do is it will be a percentage of coconut oil
Yeah.
in a cheaper basic scentless oil. And then you will add to that caustic potash or caustic soda,
Yeah.
which is purified and has no smell once you put it in. So that makes it basic as opposed to acidic. So soap is basic, which is why
Yeah.
if you ever get an acid burn, you chuck soap on it immediately because it will neutralize the acid.
Oh.
Yes, that's one of the key points. And then you mix it with a lot of water, and then you can distill it down and turn it into a bar, or you can keep it semi-liquid. But an interesting point, when you go to the shop and you get dishwash, and the thicker it is, the better it is, it's a total lie. Because the thickness of liquid soap is achieved through salt, which has no effect on its cleaning power whatsoever.
Yeah. People
So,
are very trouble.
yeah, so when they say it's thicker, it's better, it's a total lie. It has nothing to do with how well it cleans. On the other hand, and I suppose kudos to Sunlight, the use of citric acid in a soap does make it clean better. So when you get it with lemon, it does clean better.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not the thickness, it's what goes in with it. And yes, coconut oil and olive oil are excellent bases. However, they are expensive bases. So when
Yeah.
you go, all you ladies out there that goes and gets Dove soap, now that's made with a very special set of oils. I don't know exactly all, and I would imagine it would be illegal to tell if I did know, but I
Yeah.
know several of them, and they really are that expensive. So when you put in a lot, it's very good for your skin, but you
You
will
see what
pay.
you see what I used to do is I used to make hand soap out of normal bars of soap, liquid hand soap out of normal bars of soap.
Yes.
Um, and I used to sell it actually.
No, absolutely.
But
You
but I thought about, I looked into making soap with lye and all that, but I got nervous because I realized how,
there's a lot more to it, and one of the things you would need is a renderer.
it's complicated.
You've got to render the fat down, and the more you render it, which takes quite a long time and a fair amount of fuel if you don't have an industrial cooker, the more you render it, the purer it becomes, and you get the nasty smells and stuff out. But it is quite a process, so it's better to go to your local chemical factory and just buy the stuff and mix it
Yeah,
from there.
you can buy soap base and then add your own smells or whatever.
Yes, and of course,
So,
the trick to soap making is the problem of combining the different materials and not getting them to separate.
yeah.
Okay, so that's the hard part. So one of my dad's most famous things was he knew the formula for a thing that mixed orange oil, which is acidic, with
Right.
lanolin and soap, which made a really, really nice orange scented liquid soap, which
Sounds
not
nice.
only cleaned well, but repelled bugs.
That's
So,
cool.
yeah, but the problem, and it was really good for your skin because of the lanolin that's in it.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
if you just mix those things together, they almost immediately separate.
So,
So
so
it's not, yeah.
what did he do? You know,
I'm not going to tell you that because
you're not allowed to
it's a
tell us the
secret.
secret.
And there's a lot of people that would give a lot of money to know that secret because
Okay, never mind.
having those three things in one soap is really, really good. But
Yeah.
your chances of putting them together and not having them separate is like 2%.
Did he write everything down for you in a book with him for you to keep?
He taught me.
Oh, okay.
It was never written down.
Yeah, because yeah, for sure. I can
Yes.
understand that.
And it was wanted sufficiently that I can tell you that I was once offered a job purely because they wanted me to give them the formula for that.
Oh wow.
And when I wouldn't give them the formula, I was quietly no longer needed in the position, and therefore the position was closed.
How
Yes.
crazy is that?
So yeah, getting that formula is something a lot of people, and in the world there are only 3 people permitted legally to use that formula. My dad was one, and he's now passed. So unless it's been handed on by the other 2, until they go, you can't make it.
Wow, that's
Yes,
really cool.
I can because I'm allowed to.
You're so special.
And sadly, I'm not in the detergents industry, so
Oh well, it's good to know that you can, anyways.
it is, and it
Something
it
to
really
brag
does.
about.
Well, it really worked amazingly well, and what, like I say, one of the best bit is that it was insect retardant. So
Yeah.
yeah, we used to wash everything with it. You could do dishes, you could wash yourself with it. It was very, very good for the skin. It made you smell a bit of orange oil, which is not bad. Keeps all the bugs away. Wash the dogs with it, wash the cats with it, wash the floors with it. And yeah, fleas, mosquitoes, ticks, they don't like it at all. So they tend to go, and of course, as you can imagine in this country, flies don't like it. It's an
Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah,
Especially
so
for animals.
very useful formula to have. And formulas like that would have made people very rich over the centuries for varying reasons. Secret formulas included things like gunpowder, which originally was owned only by the Chinese. And of course, back in the day, there was no legal recourse. You just had to keep things secret, which meant a
Yeah.
lot of stuff wasn't written down, which is pretty damn cool.
So
So yeah, we owe a great deal to alchemy. Now, as we progress with our little story, we see then that they used to write things down in code. And so there were hidden symbols and all kinds of stuff that would let you know what to actually do if you knew. So if you were on the inside, you know how they say, when you know, you know. And when you don't know, you don't know. So absolutely. And of course, it connected very greatly to the esoteric. So in many ways, alchemy is the jump from magic to science. Now, we see that there were secrets and proto-sciences and natural philosophies, as they called it, that came out of China, India, the Muslim world, Europe, and a great deal more. There were a lot of text from the Greco-Roman Egyptian world. And alchemy as we know it, at least in the West, was born in Egypt. Egypt is where it all started. So it was generally, because it was only called alchemy later, it was generally just called the art, techne. And of course, you can probably guess from techne, we get technique from it. How to do, the art of doing. Sometimes it was episteme, where we get epistemology or knowledge. We have mystike, the mystic, hera, the sacred, and theia, the divine. And of course, the divine, theia, is where we get theology from. So you can see that these words then affected modern language, very much so. So what were they really up to? Alchemists attempted to purify and perfect certain materials. They wanted to achieve what they called chrysopoieia, the transmutation of base metals into noble metals, generally lead into gold. The creation of the elixir of immortality, the creation of panaceas that would cure diseases, and the perfection of the human body and soul from the great works that they would do. Now, of course, the big argument in the modern day is whether or not the try that again. Whether or not the philosopher's stone was a thing or a process. And we're still not sure because of the secrets. Karina, hey, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to see you on. We don't often see my good friend Karina on because she is all the way in Canada, and when we are late and starting our lives, she's still at work.
A shame. Sad.
So, yeah. But nevertheless, we're glad to see her, and thank you so much for the gift. So, yeah. Islamic and European alchemists developed a base set of laboratory techniques, techne, theories, terms, some of which are still in use today, which goes to show how much it influenced modern chemistry. Chemistry literally from chemia, from the Islamic word. So the ancient philosophical ideas hasn't gone. Now, initially it was thought that everything was made up of the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. And we still say things are made up of the elements. We just have 208 base elements on our periodic table. But we have our elements exactly the same. Many of these things were very secret. So they would make up strange ciphers and cryptic symbolism. The translations in Europe of the 12th century of the medieval Islamic works on science and the Aristotelian philosophy gave birth to Latin alchemy, and so you've got ciphers made of ciphers made of ciphers. So it's hugely secret. Now we know at the time magic was of a huge deal as well. I'm just going to quickly wave to Karina. So you've got this whole rise in magic with alchemy. So as you can imagine, they rabbit-holed hard, and it went off in all strange directions. But within it was a great deal of serious science, which led to modern science, modern chemistry, modern medical chemistry, and more. And this mattered a very great deal. It led on to all sorts of different things, which has made things matter. Now, we get a fusion the more people travel. So you had Chinese alchemy, which was just done in China. But as people traveled and went to China, they brought back techniques. You had Rasayana, the Indian alchemy, which equally developed just in India and then came across. You had your Mediterranean basin alchemy, which included Egyptian first, and then your Islamic and Muslim world alchemy, which was also brought in, which then all of that ended up into medieval Europe, which had all kinds of additions of their own. And so what we have in the modern age is a mixture of everything, which was very, very useful. So in Hellenistic Egypt, we had Hermetic writings, and things like the ability to purify from a very, very early alembic. So an alembic, basically, it's like a glass ball with a very long spout that goes into another glass ball. And you put the liquid in the one and heat it, and what comes out is then, as vapor, is then purified through and then reforms in the next one, which is supposedly a great deal purer, which is one of the great things. Yes, you've probably seen. Have you played Oblivion?
No.
You haven't played... Okay, you're a gamer girl. Go play Oblivion. In Oblivion, you can find 4 items which would improve your alchemy. A calcinator, a mortar and pestle, an alembic, and I forget what the last one is. But there's 4 items. And they are absolutely the 4 major items you would use to do alchemy. You've got to be able to use a mortar and pestle to grind things together, an alembic to purify and elide, a calcinator to literally melt and then solidify solids, and I forget the last one, but we will get to it. It will turn up as we go along. But yes, they are real, and they absolutely were used. So we find that different people gave different things, and in some cases, very early writings were even attributed to the gods. It was felt that their art was divinely inspired. Now, certain places developed certain things, so the Egyptians definitely gave us a great deal of the metallurgy, which was very important to them. We find that the Chinese alchemy focused a great deal on medicine, which obviously added to a lot of things there. And that as well mattered a lot. So different places brought different things as we went along. Sometimes who the author was wasn't, but they were named as an author to give credibility to their text. So Democritus was supposed to have written 4 great works. They were not written by Democritus. So in modern science, he's simply referred to as pseudo-Democritus because, in fact, we don't know who wrote them. But they were said to have been written by Democritus. But some of the authors we do know, like Mary the Jewess, and so on and so forth. Zosimus of Panopolis, one of the very early authors from around 300, which is very early. And we see that the Greek philosophical schools gave us a lot of the words that we use for everything. So tinctures, for example, is a Greek term. Now, if you want to know what a tincture is, have you ever made a cup of tea? If so,
Yeah.
you've made a tincture. So a tincture is when you take a herbal something like tea and you steep it in hot water to draw out its essence, and then you drink it for medicine. So any herbal tincture, any herb will make a tincture. What we call tea is just a tea tincture. So to refer to, for example, rooibos tea is wrong, because rooibos is not a tea.
Oh.
No, rooibos is rooibos. Tea is tea. It's a rooibos tincture, just like tea is a tincture. But modern language, we call it a tea, even though, so you can have peppermint tea. No, you can't, not really. You have a peppermint tincture, because peppermint is peppermint, it's not tea. You can have an infusion of peppermint and tea made as a tincture. So, of course, vanilla rooibos, there you go. In Canada, you get vanilla rooibos. It sounds awful. Good Lord. The idea of taking something as wonderful as rooibos and chucking in vanilla. So yes, a tincture is made in multiple different ways. You can get a hot steeped infusion, like tea. You can get a cold soaked infusion, which is still a tincture. So different forms. You can get a tincture that is made not with water, but with alcohol. And if you put essential oils in alcohol to diffuse them, that is also a tincture. So all of that. So apparently vanilla rooibos isn't bad. Okay. I wonder why we don't get it here. That's an interesting thought. I don't know. Have you ever seen flavored rooibos?
Well, little girl here on the property drinks cranberry, raspberry flavored.
Okay.
This is so.
There we go.
So I think it's 5 Roses that makes it.
Ah, and we do get 5 Roses here, which is interesting that I would have expected to see more. Maybe I just don't drink enough tea, to be fair. But I do. My favourite, of course, is Lady Grey, which is a combined infusion of both tea and certain other herbs. And Lady Grey is a very floral tea, and it is incredibly nice. It's also very expensive. So,
Let's look it up.
oh, it's well worth it. So you get Earl Grey, which is a lot more robust but not as floral, and you get Lady Grey. I like Lady Grey. Lady Grey is much nicer, but Earl Grey is very, very good. And yes, 5 Roses does make one of the best versions of it.
It is nice.
So,
Pretty much the only tea I can drink.
Okay.
But
Well,
other teas just taste like milk.
well, there you see. So if you want good tea, of course, as we know, you get green tea, you get black tea, which is a different process of making the actual tea, but it is both the same tea in its origin. So yeah, it becomes quite a science. You might not realize it comes from alchemy. Now, we do find that you get quite a mix in the alchemical arts, where it's assumed that true alchemy is taught only by certain demons and only to those who give them the appropriate sacrifices. Now, we know that in the very earliest texts, what they called demons, so might not be what we call demons. So Zosimos refers to them as Hoikata topon euphroi. My Greek is not great anymore. So hoi kata topon euphroi, and the chaireia, the priest, had to offer them sacrifices. Now, they might not be what we would call demons, but rather the various gods of Egypt. So you have to be kind of careful what they're referring to, because words change their meaning over the years. Just keep that in mind as we go. So this nevertheless did affect different peoples and how they think of it. So Zosimos of Panopolis said that alchemy dated back to Pharaonic Egypt and was the domain of the priestly class. Though we have no proof of his saying that, we also have no proof that he was wrong, because it was that long ago. Alchemical writers did use classical figures from Greek, like Hades, who was a Greek god, as being the source of a lot, or Lucius from the Roman traditions. And Egyptian mythology tends to illuminate their works and allegorize the transmutation, which includes Isis, Osiris, and more. So there's a lot of religious influence, if that makes sense. Huge thanks for those likes there. I do appreciate that lots. Now, one of the great figures of mythology in alchemy is a chap known as Hermes the Thrice Great, Hermes Trismegistus. Now, was he real? Hard to say. We do know that he was somehow connected to the god Thoth from Egypt and his Greek counterpart Hermes, and that's one of the reasons why the catechusis is so important in alchemy and has stuck in modern medicine. The catechusis is the stick with the snakes wound around it that we often see on medical things. That's why we get it from that. And according to Clement of Alexandria, Hermes Trismegistus wrote the 42 books of Hermes, which covered all fields of knowledge, and possibly the Emerald Tablet. Now, nobody really knows if the Emerald Tablet is a real thing, if it ever actually existed, or if it was one of those mythological stories, because nobody's actually found it. But we know that the Hermetic philosophy and its practitioners wrote quite a few things, and it was divided into the religious philosophical books and the technical books. There you see again the techne. So it covered alchemy, astrology, medicine, pharmacology, magic, and more. The oldest parts are written in Greek and may go back as far as the 2nd or 3rd century BC. And they've been added to and added to and added to. Now, the Hermetica was eventually translated into Arabic by the people of the golden age of the Muslim world, and then into Latin, which of course, you know, the kids' game of broken telephone?
Oh, yeah.
Yep, that kicks in. So from Old Greek to Arabic to Latin, and then into German and English, you can see how things get a bit twisted around. So the most famous of things, known as the Smaragdine Table, or the Tabula Smaragdina, the Emerald Tablet. It's a text that we have alleged copies of. The original was supposedly carved out of real emerald. It's a very compact and very cryptic text. There are 4 Arabic versions preserved in mystical treatises from between the 8th and 10th century. The Secret of Creation, Sir al-Khalika, and the Secret of Secrets, Sir al-Asrar. And then after that, in the 12th century onward, there are Latin translations in the Vulgate, which is later Latin, not very good Latin, really, with the translation of the Tanakh and the Christian New Testament into the Vulgate. And these books were introduced into Europe, where it attracted, of course, huge interest, and it was interpreted as the foundational text of alchemical instruction, producing the philosopher's stone, which of course was then taken up. And a lot of people tried to make it and failed. 1 or 2 said that they did, including Nicholas Flamel. Now, if he did, he's still around, and maybe he's watching this. So if he's out there, give us a like, Nick. But then, of course, this caused problems because of the reference to demons. So the Roman Emperor Diocletian ordered the burning of all the alchemical works, which they said was bad, and the suppressing of a revolt in Alexandria in 292. Now, very few of the original Egyptian documents have survived, sadly, and we know that the library of Alexandria burnt to the ground. So huge amounts of things were lost with that. Some did survive, including the Stockholm Papyrus and the Leiden Papyrus 10. Now, the important thing about things like that is when you realize it's the tense of, you realize that you're missing at least 9 others, if not more. So, and they contained recipes for dyeing, for making artificial gemstones, for cleaning and fabricating pearls, manufacturing imitation gold and silver, and more. And they contain various mystical and philosophical elements pertaining to alchemy, and the works of Bolus of Mendes, who may have been Pseudo-Democritus. We're not sure. And they aligned all kinds of things to astrology and the classical elements. So now you're getting a mix of different things put together. So somewhere between Zosimus and Bolus, alchemy has gained other avenues, which may or may not include magic. And of course, this then got mixed with Pythagoreanism, which is essentially the basis for mathematics as we know it today. Though other bits came from other places, we draw heavily on Pythagorean stuff. Platonism, Stoicism, and of course the famous Gnosticism that really formed the basis of Western alchemy. So Empedocles from Greek philosophy and works of his developed by Aristotle formed the idea of earth, air, fire and water. And if they are mixed in the correct way, you could then modify things into anything. They are very much not the matter itself, but rather the qualitative nature of the individual matter. So it was never really regarded earth as earth, but rather that's the realm from which a thing comes. The corresponding corporeal chemical substances have certain qualities which are amorphous and spiritual. So things will be hot or cold, wet or dry, will draw upon the earthly aspects or the fiery aspects. And of course there were tables which showed what went where and how and all the rest of it, which is interesting. Now, alchemy then got mixed in with the emerging belief in Christianity. And you find that Augustine of Hippo speaks even of these things, but because he was a Christian bishop, he condemned Hermes Trismegistus for his idolatry. So examples of pagan, Christian and Jewish alchemy can be found through that sort of period that developed into the more modern Western thing. Now, we know that for most Greco-Roman alchemists that preceded Zosimos, they are known just by base names that doesn't tell us very much. So we know that there was a Moses of Alexandria, a Cleopatra the alchemist, Democritus, who wasn't the real Democritus, and Ostanes. And you might wonder who the heck they were, and well, yes, we all do. He was sometimes known as Moses the 3 times happy, which doesn't mean much to us now. Cleopatra the alchemist, born and raised in Egypt, was an Egyptian alchemist, a writer, a philosopher. She experimented with practical alchemy and is credited as one of the 4 great female alchemists who could produce the philosopher's stone.
Wow.
Maybe she could, maybe she couldn't. We know that Khalid ibn Yazid sparked the migration from Alexandria to the Islamic world, which started off the translation of all the texts and got the Islamic world going with alchemy, which then got retranslated and taken over to the rest of the world. Byzantium, the Greek alchemists in medieval Byzantine manuscripts happened after the fall of Roman Egypt. And there was a great deal, sorry, my eyes are very dry for some reason. And my glass is dirty, but there you go. But many of those manuscripts were lost and later found. And historians, even today, have only just started to really get into the Byzantine period and all of their things. We know that in India, alchemy was going round about the 2nd millennium BC, and the Vedas describe a connection between external life, between eternal life, sorry, and gold. So metallurgy has always been considered vital to the idea of long life and good health. And in the 3rd century AD, the Arthashastra provides ingredients for explosives of all things, and salts that can be extracted from soils and plant remains, known as yavakshara. And out of that you get saltpeter, without which you can't have explosives in the early world, perfume, and the different qualities of perfume, granulated refined sugar, believe it or not. So, yeah, sugar's quite recent in the Western world, historically speaking. It was never really a big thing, and certainly not good sugar from sugar cane. We had sugar beet, which is actually not a great way to make sugar at all. Buddhist texts from the 2nd and 5th century also mention transmutation of metals into gold, and they say that there may have been some very early flow of knowledge between Greeks and India and Tibet, but proving that's impossible. We know that in the 11th century, the Persian chemist and physician Abu Rayyan Biruni visited Gujarat and was in the court of Mahmud of Ghazni, and they said they have a science similar to alchemy, which is quite peculiar to them, which in Sanskrit is called Rasayana, and in Persian Rasavatam, which means the art of obtaining or manipulating, rasa, which could mean nectar, mercury, or juice. The art was restricted to certain operations, metals, drugs, compounds, and medicines, many of which have mercury as their core element. The principles restored the health of those who were ill beyond hope and gave back youth to fading old age. So the goals of alchemy in India included the creation of a divine body, of immortality while still embodied, and Sanskrit alchemical texts include much material on the manipulation of mercury and sulfur that, when mixed and homogenized with possibly the semen of the god Siva and the menstrual blood of the goddess Devi, will turn into gold. How one obtains those things, I don't know, but there you go. They may have been a way of hiding what they were using or not. We're not sure. But you do start to see people separating things into alchemical research for something again. So it's going back to alchemy for metallurgy, alchemy for medicine, and people going more strongly into things, which then develops in the modern age into chemistry for purely inorganics type stuff, biochemistry for organic stuff, medico-chemistry for medical stuff, and so on. And we've kind of dropped away from the magico-chemistry to a great degree. Now, there's a lot written of it even to the modern age, so it hasn't gone. Now we know that the contents of 39 Sanskrit treatises have been analysed in detail in Gerrit van Meulenbel's History of Indian Medical Literature. And these works are quite important as they have shown a lot of basics that we would pretty much have similarities to even today. Many of the ancient texts had very interesting drawings and depictions, and from that we even get an impression of one of the great Islamic alchemists, Jabir ibn Hayyan, who was known as Gerber in the Western world. But then once certain great empires failed, things moved. So the late 9th and early 10th century Arabic works were done mostly by Gerber. And he introduced a very new approach to alchemy to form an idea of the historical place of Gerber's alchemy and to tackle the problem of its sources. It is advisable to compare it with what remains of alchemical literature in the Greek language. And one knows that the miserable state in which this literature reached us, collected by Byzantine scientists from the 10th century, the corpus of Greek alchemists is a cluster of incoherent fragments going back to all the time since the 3rd century to the end of the Middle Ages. The efforts of Berthelot and Rouelle put little order to this mess, with poor results. And so he goes on to say that early attempts weren't good because of the damage to documents and the loss of things. Islamic philosophy had as hard a time, but they did their best, and it got mixed in with Aristotelian philosophy, with your 4 qualities of hotness, coldness, dryness, and moistness. Each of these things, you found 2 qualities for all things, 2 interior and 2 exterior. So lead was externally cold and dry, but externally gold was hot and moist. So Gerber theorized by rearranging the qualities of a metal, you would make a different metal. Now, we know in modern science this is absolutely true, weirdly enough. If you change the atomic structure, it becomes a different metal. Now, it would be very hard to do it, but if you look at the periodic table, lead and gold are not that far apart. And if you could manage to insert a couple more electrons, yes, lead can turn into gold. Though with the aforementioned problems that go along with it, you can't touch it or you will die of radiation poisoning. But you can do it, which is very interesting. And of course, they tried very hard. Now, along with these things, not only were they trying to actually do physical alchemy or techne, they also were doing mystical alchemy. And so the elaborate numerology of Gerber created an idea that there was a scientific way to develop spiritually as well. And hence, this grew on. So this, of course, did get a lot of criticism in some places. And a number of people into the science even said that you absolutely shouldn't and can't transmute metals, and that the idea of doing so was foolish. But of course, you also had an influence at the same time going on from Chinese alchemists. And they also used complicated mathematical phenomena which developed into the idea of things like the magic squares. And you have a number of things like this magic square of 3 that then get into the Arabic alchemy as well. And the naming of things was influenced, and how things worked together, and how religion worked with it. Now, believe it or not, the idea of the Taoist yin-yang even influenced that there are sides to things and modifications to things. And it all became amusingly, ironically, a mixed pot melting together. Alchemy literally calcinated its own understanding, which is pretty cool. You had a number of things like the scripture of great clarity, the scripture of the 9 elixirs, and the scripture of the golden liquor, texts on alchemy that came from China and included how to become immortal. And people like Ge Hong worked on a whole collection of things, and the idea that true alchemical elixirs were more effective and better than your traditional boring medical treatments due to the spiritual perfection that they could provide, which overrode mere physicality. So yeah, the 9 elixirs were 9 powerful elixirs that basically made you a god, if you got them all. If you didn't, you died. Now, given that the basis of a number of these things included mercury, well, you can see how that might go badly as an ingested medicine. Sulfur mixed with mercury doesn't make mercury any better. And a great many alchemists carefully created mercuric sulfide and died. Some of them went a step further and mixed mercuric sulfide with lead, which made them die faster. If you're going to mix extremely poisonous things together, the bad news is it's not good for you. Now, of course, this led to the West and a whole lot of things, and we find very interesting that one of the places where alchemy really did well was in Toledo, in Spain, where eventually their hard work on metallurgy led to them being one of the greatest places of steel making in the world. And Toledo steel still has a reputation even today, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, different places came up with different things, of course, and we find that the works of Averroes and Avicenna, as they are known in the West, absolutely had a great deal of influence. Ibn Rushd and Ibn Sina are their proper names, but obviously in the West they couldn't pronounce them. So Avicenna and Averroes had a great deal of things. We find that words came in with developments that the West had no word for, so they adopted the one that came from somewhere else. So alcohol is an Arabic word. Carboy, elixir, athanor, and more come from the older Islamic world, and we just had no word for them. We knew how to ferment things, but didn't know what alcohol was in and of itself, whereas the early Islamic alchemist figured out how to distill it into a thing. We know that Anselm of Canterbury was a great theologian, but also he was a great philosopher and felt that faith and alchemy could be combined. We know Peter Abelard followed Anselm's ideas, which laid down the foundation for the acceptance of Aristotelian thought in the West, which made a massive difference because prior to that, it wasn't permitted. And there's a mozzie buzzing around me, and just if I suddenly leap out, it's because I've spotted him trying to bite me and I'm going to get him. I do not like mozzies. So, given the fact that there were several wars between the Muslim world and the Christian world, the writings would have been considered heretical and not allowed. So when it became accepted by accepted theologians, that allowed people to study them rather than instantly try and burn them, which made a great deal of change in the furthering of these things. And it really did matter. So keep that in mind as we go through history. So we then see the church kicking in. Albertus Magnus, Roger Bacon, both monks. Albertus Magnus was a Dominican friar known to have written the great Book of Minerals, where he observed and commented on the operations and theories of alchemical authorities like Hermes Trismegistus and Pseudo-Democritus, and varying other alchemists, which gave us a start. Because,
I'll be right back.
cool.
Sorry.
No probs. Without that acceptance, things wouldn't have been carried along. And of course, a great student and very, very important theologian was Thomas Aquinas, who thereafter brought in a lot of important alchemical texts, which would otherwise have been lost. Roger Bacon was a Franciscan friar, and he worked all kinds of things on comparative linguistics and optics and medicines, and composed his opus magnus, or great work, for Pope Clement IV, which meant these things were kept. And that's kind of the important point. So yeah, without it, it wouldn't have happened. We would have lost a lot. And we didn't because of very specific people in history. So good stuff on them. Now, of course, this led to advances in soteriology and theology, the idea of natural philosophy, not just theology for religion, but for what eventually became modern science. Now, Bacon wrote a lot of stuff on morality and salvation, and it mixed with the alchemy and the prolonging of life. And he spoke with the Pope often on this. And the papacy considered it important. Therefore, it was saved. We see that in a number of things. And of course, this connected the idea of people becoming more than just an alchemist, but an archmage as well. And Albertus Magnus, despite being a friar, was credited with forging a bronze head capable of answering the owner's questions, which is pretty cool, if freaky. Another thing which modern science has proved can happen, Alexa, just saying. It seems that it's very, very true that magic is just science we have yet to explain. And we're fulfilling a great deal of magic in modern science. Now, the sulfur-mercury theory was huge, as I say, and probably awfully dangerous. The ideas, though, that came up included that there was an internal microcosm reflecting the outer macrocosm. And in modern science, we have atoms, which just goes to show. But along with it, in the early form, it said that the outside world affects the inner world of the human body. And of course, that affected all sorts of stuff. The 4 elements, the 4 qualities, but it was secret. So you got really cool, but very incomprehensible, magical textbooks full of symbols and codes. And eventually, things became further until you started, people, accepting it. And you found people like Dante, Chaucer, and Pope John the 22nd all getting involved. You found that there were even laws passed controlling it. And the Roman Catholic Inquisitor, General Nicholas Amerix, wrote a thing that said that any alchemy done with the performance of demonic rituals, which is not the same as magic, that is done in accordance with Christian scripture, would result in you being severely prosecuted. And as we know, in that time, prosecution did not go well for those prosecuted. We know that Henry IV of England banned the practice of multiplying metals by the passing of the Gold and Silver Act. So you shouldn't try and make gold, partly to manage money. But we see all of this going along. Now, around this time, we have Nicholas Flamel, the well-known alchemist, who was copied by a huge number of people, got involved and started to do his writings, which sadly, though, only actually appeared in 1612, so quite a while after him. So how accurate they were to him is questionable. But it's very clear that alchemy was alive, well, and doing a great deal, which developed into pharmacological and medical occult, and the idea of not just healing but bettering the body. And it's around this time as well that we found that people like the owner of Castle Frankenstein, which we now know is a real place with a real mad doctor that lived there, he started trying to figure out how people were alive, sometimes by building them. So yes, the story of Frankenstein is true and real. He didn't succeed in real life, but it didn't stop him from trying it. So yeah, this is where things merge between your Gnostic viewpoints, your Jewish Kabbalah, your Hermeticism, and alchemy. And yeah, we see that around this time things start getting a real mix of very interesting things. And Paracelsus, who actually was Philippus Aurelius Theophratus Bombastus von Hohenheim, I can see why he changed his name, who lived between 1493 and 1541, started up the idea of occultic alchemy and drew things off that way. The idea that doing silly technical things like making gold and silver is stupid. No, this is about developing the spirit, soul purification and more, and therefore developed all kinds of other things. And you see people like John Dee, the famous occultic magician, astrologer, cryptographer, and consultant to Elizabeth I of England, getting involved with his famous Mornis Hieroglyphica, which was written in 1564, a very popular work that definitely affected a huge amount of Western science and the supernatural things that then affected people like Robert Boyle and Elias Ashmole, who become very important to science. And in fact, Ashmole's work is considered seminal in a great many famous old libraries. So very, very, very important. But of course, now very much mixed in with Christianity. So you see the religions have been bouncing along through back and forth as well as we go along. Now, at this time, it got a bit out of hand. So false alchemists were often prosecuted for fraud, and con artists were everywhere. And chemia and alchemia was the talk of the day, which eventually turned into chemistry, modern chemistry. And astrology got removed from the chemistry, and things started developing into much more scientific things. And we see a Polish guy, Michael Sedzivoj, who was an early doctor, managed to distill oxygen in a laboratory in the 1600s, which is pretty damned impressive. He taught his technique to Cornelius Drebbel, who tried to make a submarine using it in 1621. Isaac Newton used these ideas and did study occult to apply to optics and physics, and therefore created ideas that modern science did absolutely use to make what we use as real science today, which is pretty damned cool no matter how you look at it. So can you imagine a 16th century submarine with its own oxygen producing device within?
That must be good.
I mean, come on, that's cool.
Yeah.
Did it work? Hell no. But
No.
it didn't stop them trying. And it's cool. So yeah. Spooky, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm good. How are you guys?
Good, good, good.
Everything.
So yeah, we're discussing alchemy and why it matters, and looking at some of the cool things that developed, including
Like cough syrup.
Say what?
Like cough syrup.
Well, yes, actually, cough syrup is one of the things that alchemy develops. But also submarines and modern medicine and modern surgery. After people made a few starts with a Frankenstein-type monster, there wasn't only one place that was done.
Did you say submarine?
I said submarine in the 16th century with its own oxygen-producing alchemical device inside.
Okay.
It didn't work.
But like a sinking ship?
It was a diving bell, actually, more than anything.
Okay.
But yeah, and the guy who tried to make one did find a way to distill oxygen in a laboratory, and figured if you could keep producing it in the diving bell, you could stay down for a long time. He wasn't wrong. Now, of course, finally, in the 1720s, a distinction was made between alchemy and chemistry. And alchemy became the realm of charlatans and occultists, and chemistry was what real scientists said. And things moved on through the Enlightenment, where, as we know, there was a divorce and separation between religion and science. Any religion and any occultism and science. And there's where the big change happened. Yeah, basically, historically speaking, just the other day. So 19th century saw a revival of the occultic alchemy that has continued till today. Interestingly enough, along with Marianne Atwood and Ethan Allen Hitchcock, who published similar works on spiritual alchemy. Both of them saying that chemistry is all very well, but true development is in alchemy. Now, is it? Well, it affected, nevertheless, very important people, such as Arthur Edward Waite. If you've ever seen one of the famous tarot decks, the Rider-Waite deck, Arthur Edward Waite is the one half of the Rider-Waite tarot deck. Eliphas Levi, Rudolf Steiner, all of these guys were affected by a re-look at alchemy. And in 1946, Louis Cattiau published the Message Retrouvé, a work that is both what is wrong with me today? My talking is bad. Philosophical and mystical, and highly influenced by alchemy. So it's back. We find that women get involved quite a lot as well.
Can I just ask a quick question? So, chemistry is science, alchemy is belief?
Alchemy is a mix of science and belief. We only separated it very recently.
Okay.
And there's a huge influence in modern science from all the old. Most of the words we use come from the old stuff. So, for example, technique comes from the old Greek, techne, which means the art, which meant alchemy. So, yeah, we see that some incredibly interesting things that we use today were developed way back when. So, for example, you know what a bain-marie is?
Yeah.
Okay. Originally, it was for alchemy. It was invented in 200 AD by Mary the Jewess. And bain-marie literally means bath of Mary.
Oh, wow.
So a double boiler. So way back when double boilers were invented, and it absolutely has been used in chemistry and still is today. The tribikos is an early distillation apparatus, and today we do the same thing. Sublimations done today are using equipment based on the early kerotakis, which comes from way back when. All these things attributed at least to Mary the Jewess in 200 AD. So absolutely interesting equipment that without there would be no modern science. We use it slightly differently, but nevertheless, we see that all kinds of things are made forward. We see that people started breaking down and developing talcum powder. We use that still today, absolutely. And it's used for all kinds of things, medically. And yes, we see talc actually mixed and drunk with white wine, which protects you from poison, sickness, and even plague. We see that hair dye recipes are being developed. Lip colors are being developed. Lotions and more. Ailments for fevers and coughs. Cough syrup. Epilepsy and even cancer. But there is also the idea of trying to produce ether, not the chemical ether, but quintessence, an elixir that is able to cure anything and keep you young forever. And of course, again, the Philosopher's Stone. We see that the Medici's got involved, the big banking house and trader hub that had huge influence and money. And if you're into Assassin's Creed, you should know exactly who the Medici's were for all of those reasons. Because yes, they were the buggers that were causing all the assassinations, or half of them. The other houses were doing the other things, but yeah, if you're into Assassin's Creed, know your Medici's and try and avoid them. It was one of the Medici's that had a specially made Bible with a pistol in it, that if you pulled one of the bookmarks, it fired the pistol through the Bible, just in case somebody attacked him while in church. Yes, they were that paranoid, for good reason. What do they say? Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they are not out to get you. So we see a lot of things, but now let's jump along, because there is indeed more to look at. We see that we want to make spiritual perfections and all kinds of great works, which might or might not be possible. So let's see what some of these guys said and did. We find that there are very, very important names that come out of a number of places. There are the legendary ones, Anki Sheng from China, Hermes Trismegistus, Arstanes, Nicholas Flamel, Pernille Flamel, Christian Rosenkreuz, and Abraham Eliezer, who may not actually have existed but are accredited with. We have a number that did exist from the Greco-Roman Egypt, like Agathodemon, Chimes, Cleopatra the alchemist, Mary the Jewess, Moses of Alexandria, Olympodorus of Thebes, and similar such people, and of course Democritus and Aristotle. Yes, people stole names. And of course the famous Zosimus. We also have a number of important ones from India, and I'm pretty certain I will not get their names right. So let us say that there are several. Yogi Vananda, Siddhar Tamil, Alvars, and so on, who were sages and philosophers, but also alchemists. China gave us a number of important ones, like Ge Hong and Jiajing Emperor and Shen Yu Xiu and Sun Pue. who definitely affected a lot of things. And this all coalesced along with people like Khalid ibn Yazid, known as Khalid in Latin, Jabir ibn Khayyan, known as Gerber. These people affected what then jumped into Europe. Alain de Lille, Albertus Magnus, we'll talk about them, Roger Bacon, Nicholas Flamel, and more. And of course, that developed quite a long way until the revival times, where you see people like Marianne Atwood, 1817 to 1910, Eugene Cancelit, 1899 to 1982, and most interestingly, Jean Dubois, 1919 to 2010, Terence McKenna, 1946 to 2000. So it shows that these kinds of things carried on even to the modern day.
Can you just tell me who these people are or what they did?
Well, that's what we are getting to now. So important people to know about, especially if you're into Harry Potter. Nicholas Flamel was real. Just as in the Harry Potter movies, he was said to be the creator of the Philosopher's Stone. Well, he was born in 1330 in France. He died in Paris in 1418. He was married. He was a philosopher and an alchemist. He was actually...
How did he die?
Old age.
Oh, that's nice. How many people did he kill?
He was one of the cleverer ones who didn't mix mercury and sulfur, and therefore didn't die.
Okay, but I'm pretty sure he probably killed a bunch of people.
No,
Poisoned them.
he was all
He had
right.
to create a bunch of concoctions to test these products out. Probably didn't know what to do, so he threw maybe a little bit of herbs, a little bit of snake poison, mix it all together. Hey, I'm an alchemist. Yeah, try this out. I'm dead.
Well, nobody important.
Because how do you become an alchemist? You probably have to go through trial and error, create a bunch of concoctions and test it all out. I mean, you just don't just know everything and what to do.
You're not wrong. Let's just say that. But he did create, they say, the Philosopher's Stone and achieved immortality. So maybe he didn't die, as record has it. We know that he was a draftsman and a writer of texts. So a great many texts went through his hands, which allowed him to copy them and learn from them. Apparently he did a lot of things. We know that he does have a tombstone, so he's thought to be dead. He lived in Paris for most of his life, the historical guy. He is mentioned as owning 2 shops. He married a very nice young lady who was rich, so it was a good marriage. A worrying marriage because she got her riches from 2 previous husbands, just saying. And she was a medical type pharmacist alongside his medical pharmacy. He lived into his 80s and designed his own tombstone, which is a bit morbid. The tombstone is preserved. Records say he died in 1418 and he was buried in the church of Saint-Jacques de la Bouchière. But Louder, my dear, I nearly lost all of that.
Oh, my phone's about to die.
Ah, okay. But
Okay, so
yes,
I'm sorry. A bit early.
they say the real guy did die. Now, the oldest stone house in Paris is still standing, and it was one of his houses, and on the wall it writes, "We, ploughmen and women living at the porch of this house, built in 1407, are requested to say every day an Our Father and an Ave Maria, praying God that his grace forgive poor and dead sinners." There was a restaurant in it for a while, if that helps. But yeah, he was absolutely there, and he had a reputation. Now, did he really do all this? Well, it's historically argued, but nevertheless, we do know.
But you said he had a pharmacy,
Yes,
so he was a
he
a
was
chemist.
he was a chemist, a maker
Yes.
of medical medicines.
Yes. Okay.
So whether or not he really did all of that alchemy, or he was just attributed with that, is argued.
So a chemist makes medicine.
And a pharmacist,
Alchemist
no,
makes potions.
no. A chemist makes concoctions of varying types. A pharmacist makes medicines, and an alchemist does all kinds of things which, dependent on what year you're talking about, may include medicine and other concoctions.
Okay. But only one makes potions.
Technically, yes.
All sorts of potions, even health potions.
Apparently.
But you probably have to pray to make the potion work. And light a candle or make a puff of smoke.
Well, it
For the
would
potion to
depend.
work.
It would depend on which time we're talking about, because alchemy developed along different lines and different times in history. But broadly, you would be correct. Huge thanks, by the way, to Mickey for being with us this long. I do hope she is doing very, very well. And guys, do go and like her videos. She is a great supporter of the channel and deserves it massively, and she is a great person. And in fact, like and share everybody's channels, because it's by looking after each other that we get to do these things. So yeah, go and like and share Spookies, like and share mine.
I don't post videos.
That's true, you don't.
Yeah, I mean repost.
But nevertheless, following is good for everybody. But yes, so the next Flamel to consider was Perenelle Flamel, who was, of course, the wife of Nicholas Flamel, a wealthy benefactress, and again had a reputation, at least, as a successful alchemist. Given when we are talking, the difference between chemistry and alchemy was not yet solid. That only happened in the 17th century. So to call her an alchemist doesn't mean she wasn't a chemist or pharmacist. It was all one at this time. So yeah, they built poor houses, interestingly enough, were very charitable and more. So they were good peoples. So they did a lot of good, and they made a lot of medicine, which apparently is very, very good. We know that her work was her own alongside her husband's, and she was not that keen on the Philosopher's Stone. She was much more interested in other forms of things. Now, Perinel, of course, is also in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. We know that they are also in the book by Michael Scott, The Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel, which is actually a series of 6 novels. We know that she turns up in Immortal Muse by Stephen Lay. So massive influence not only on science and chemistry, but absolutely in modern fiction as well. So an important person for us. The next important person is the famous Arthur Dee, physician, alchemist, and also before the separation of chemistry and alchemy and all of that, he was the physician to the Tsar of Russia and to a king of England. He was the eldest son of the famous John Dee, that esoteric expert, by John Dee's third wife, Jane, the daughter of Bartholomew Fromond from Surrey. He was born at Mortlake in 1579 and often accompanied his father John Dee on his travel through Germany, Poland, and Bohemia. And he was given a good schooling.
I just want to know, is alchemy dead?
No.
It's still alive?
Oh yes, it exists to this day.
People are still brewing potions?
They are. Whether or not it is as popular as it was, I would say it's definitely not, but there are still adherents of it.
Have you ever tried brewing potions?
Well, both my parents were chemists. So, yeah. Hell
They
yeah.
created their own tonics?
Well, my father was an inorganic chemist, not a pharmacist. He made soaps and detergents and cleaning agents. My mother was an organic chemist, and her greatest expertise was in the making of beer.
Okay.
Very worthy, that one.
So, alcohol tonics would be awesome.
Absolutely. So she wasn't really a physician or pharmacist, so not a lot of medicine directly, but certainly a great deal to do with producing the right kind of alcohols.
Well, I can say alcohol could be seen as medicine. It can help a lot.
Absolutely can, and is used a lot in medicine. So weirdly enough, she was on the team that invented a new strain of tomatoes. Yeah, the Tiger Tom. So yeah, there you go. So we know that Arthur Dee was involved in physics, in the old meaning referring to medicine. He was appointed one of the physicians that served Tsar Michael I of Russia, and he was there 14 years in Moscow, where he wrote his Fasciculus Chemicus, which was all on alchemy. He returned to England on the death of his wife in 1637 and became the physician to King Charles I. He moved to Norwich and became a friend of Sir Thomas Browne, where he did get involved in a certain amount of occultism. But remember, at this time there was still not a big separation between these things. And one of his things that he worked on was the idea of processing the alchemical egg in an athanor, a slow-burning furnace that was very popular for alchemists for calcination and such, where the idea was to develop gold out of the baser metals, and the elixir would ultimately cause you to live forever. Now, given that he's dead, I assume he did not succeed. But he's interesting, nevertheless. Now, we do have a whole lot more people to go through. But before we do, and how they influenced everything, I think it would be safe to say we should start talking about a few of the questions that have arisen. So we only actually separated science from magic broadly very recent in history. It was 17th century when that separation happened. We know that there was a movement towards the separation that occurred, and partly really because of the Renaissance. If it was not for the Renaissance, it wouldn't have separated. Prior to that, natural sciences and religion were considered to be things that mattered in much the same way and were intertwined. There was no major difference between the different philosophies, as they were referred to. So you had practical philosophy, which would include how to make medicines or soap or anything like that. And you had the intellectual and spiritual philosophies, which nowadays we now talk of philosophy, theology, psychology, chemistry, pharmacology, etc., etc. They were all one thing for most of history. We do know that as science was science, we can basically thank ancient Egypt. They were the ones that really kicked things off for the world as we know it. But this is not to say that it wasn't happening elsewhere, just that as Western medicine goes, that was our origin. What happened in India obviously affected Indian medicine, and in China, Chinese medicine, and there were a great deal of other things in other countries going on at the same time, much of which may have survived and is still considered important. That said, the influence of alchemy into the Western world went that way. Now, it is true to say at a point that you didn't only have to mix the right things, you absolutely had to summon the right demon or angel at the same time, or entreat the right god, without which your medicine would not work. So it was all one, and a number of these important people are that important, not just for the work that they did, but because of who they worked for or with, or who they were. So when they were important churchmen, they legitimized the study, without which we would have lost that impetus that led to modern science. When they worked for important emperors, it naturally made alchemy okay, because if it's good enough for the emperor and you argue, you're saying the emperor's wrong, and we will discuss this with you at length somewhere quietly, and you won't be coming back. So, as you can imagine. So these were the importances just as much as whether or not they figured out how to distill things and mix things. Also, a great many of the works spawned a great many other works, some of which were important not because they agreed, but because they disagreed with what was gone before, and therefore you had people doing more rigorous testing, which, as you pointed out, yes, developed modern cough syrup, which we would not have had if people didn't do rigorous testing. We know that mint may very much assist with a cough, but why? And what other things, and can you mix them? And as you can imagine, yes. And what can you mix them in? Well, the best thing to mix them in is alcohol for varying reasons, and hence cough syrup. So, yeah, they are all important for all of these reasons, but the esoteric side has never gone away. And maybe there is something to it, because there is an esoteric side to the Indian alchemy, the Chinese alchemy, and the Western alchemy. And very clearly, the idea was to improve and develop not just the science, but more than that. And as we go along, we shall see what it is and why it is and how it is. But Spooky, have you any questions?
Well, I've got a few questions to help my understanding of a few things. Like, what exactly is an elixir?
Okay, so you know what a potion is.
I'm guessing potions are only liquid, and I'm thinking alchemy is also liquid, but not when you're mixing it. It might be a few herbs, but the outcome is always a liquid.
No.
The chemistry might be different.
So, alchemy deals with the making of all things, all techne. And some of them are solids and powders, some of them are gases, and some of them are liquids. When it is a liquid, you would refer to it as a potion. But should that potion be one of the greater noble potions, one which can cure diseases regardless, or give healing back, or, as we see, give you eternal life, then it is not simply a potion, it is an elixir. So an elixir is like a supercharged, super powerful potion. But potions are only one aspect of what alchemy tries to achieve.
Is it a liquid? You can smell it, and it's a potion, but it still affects you just by smelling it, because it releases a gas.
No. Alchemy will
No.
create varying things. Some of those things are gases, some of them are liquids, some of them are solids. All right? If it is a liquid, it's a potion. But if it is a super potion that can, say, cure all diseases, no matter what they are, then it's referred to as an elixir. It's still a potion.
Okay.
If it's a gas, it will have other names and other uses. And if it's a solid, so on and so forth.
Okay.
Potions were favorite because you can drink them. The other thing that alchemy was supposed to approach was also a state of being. So it was supposed to be able to make you somehow spiritually better.
Okay. Like getting drunk.
I think that was what the more common person's view of what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it did work. Distillation is what produced alcohol. So fermentation followed by distillation to get good alcohol. So yeah, you can't get drunk without alchemy. So absolutely, absolutely. What else can I answer for you?
So, so you can make alcohol with chemistry and
Yes.
alchemy.
Yes.
What about well, what's it other with pharmacal?
Pharmacology.
Hmm.
Essentially, the modern words refer to the particular aim of a thing. So, chemistry, by and large, in the modern age, refers to all of those mixing of things and creation of things that is not medical. Whereas pharmacology is what we call the same thing but with the aim of medicine. So if you make soap, you're a chemist. If you make cough syrup, you're a pharmacologist. The processes are pretty much the same. It's all a kind of chemistry. But in the modern age, we tend to separate things.
Okay. And but alchemy works. You can conjure your potions differently.
Well, alchemy is what we call the original stuff, out of which chemistry, science, philosophy, biology, and all of that developed. Originally, it was all just alchemy.
I'm trying to think of the right words. All of them are created of reactions between different materials.
Correct. So if you were a biologist studying how certain animals work, back in the day, you would have been called an alchemist because you're dealing with natural alchemy and philosophy.
But alchemy is more, or is somewhat spiritual or mystical.
Yes. Very much mixed in with theology and magic.
So, I mean, you can probably also just mix a few things and there might be no reaction until you wrote down something on a piece of paper and it started shining, and then suddenly the...
Yes. So in the modern day, as we know, because of the Reformation, you do not need to know which gods to approach when doing your chemistry. But back in ancient Egypt, absolutely you did. If you didn't get the right gods involved, it would not work.
Okay. So it's part of the mixture.
Yes. And it has grown from that. Now, in the modern day, there are certain people who still believe that the spiritual aims of alchemy are valid and are important and should be pursued, and do so. But their interest now is less on the pharmacological and chemical side and far more on spiritual alchemy.
Okay. And alchemy is still a thing?
Yes, till today. That last guy that we mentioned briefly only died in 2010. And he was one of the famous ones. So if you are a follower of Hermetic Gnosticism, alchemy is still important. And there are people in the world that are still adherents of Hermetic Gnosticism. Absolutely.
Okay. And it's very much a human thing. Creating alchemy will not make you a wizard or a witch.
Well, because of The line is very, very blurry. I mean, Hermetic Gnosticism is absolutely occultic in a great many ways. So, it kind of will. But a
Okay,
particular
so
time.
you'll get burnt on the stake
Well,
probably
you see, yes, there
for
is that
practicing
side of
alchemy.
it. When it fell out of favor with the popes and the kings, that was when things did not go so well for adherents. Now, in the modern day, we see a lot of people who call themselves witches. And if you actually look at it, as we did, you quickly see that you get nature witches, you get more shamanic types, you get a whole collection. And one of those groups includes those who follow what we refer to as high magic, which is the very mathematical type magic, which Hermetic Gnosticism is absolutely a part of. So yes, it's a kind of witch, wizard, sorcerer, call what name you choose. Yes, it is. It's a particular kind. Your nature types will say you have to sit in the garden and hold an apple, whereas your high magic types, your Gnostics, are going to say it's got to be exactly the right time and in the right circle drawn precisely in the right way with this numerology, or it won't work. Same, but different.
Okay, so a chemist, you can't really call him a sorcerer.
Not in the modern day, no.
Okay, but he's doing sorcery.
Well, all of the theological and spiritual aspects have been taken out of modern chemistry. So I suppose in many ways he's a practical sorcerer.
Yeah, no, they had to invent new words so people don't burn them.
Well, yes, that was very, very important, because if you're involved in occultic stuff, you are, even till today, considered satanic and evil and therefore should be burnt at the stake.
Even if you just wanted to create a health potion.
Yeah, well, a bar of soap, you know. You don't want to be burnt at the stake because you needed to wash your feet. So
Crazy stuff.
the distinction is very important. But I must say, having grown up with scientists, that very, very often watching them make varying things, there's not a lot of difference, you know, around the pot stirring this and adding that and distilling the next thing, you know, witch around a cauldron.
So, what is a syrup?
A syrup. A syrup is specifically the kind of semi-liquid potion that the main carrier for it is sugar or sugar water.
Okay, so a cough syrup is sugar water?
With the additions in the carrier. Your tincture is an alcohol with the additions in the alcohol. What are the other ones? Trying to remember all the old names. So you can have an oil. If you go get an essential oil, that is not pure generally. It's the oil in a neutral carrier oil. So your base is the carrier, and it will dictate what you call it, because if it's a syrup, your carrier base is sugar-based. If it's a tincture, your carrier base is alcohol-based. If it's a tisane, your carrier base is water.
Okay.
And yes, it gets very complicated.
So the word concoction, I probably can't use it in many different forms. If it's a pill form, I probably can't say it's a concoction.
Not really. A concoction essentially means a mixture of multiple items, but by and large, it tends to refer only to liquids. When
Okay,
it
but
comes to solids, you tend to speak of a blend.
okay,
Same
but
is different.
concoction, a concoction is it already like you know what the effect is? You know exactly what's going to happen, or is a concoction something that means like you're still testing it out?
No, it absolutely can be both. All it means
Okay.
is a mix of many things. Con, the root meaning mixed, it's together, con.
Okay. Con.
Yeah, con is the root for together. Congregation, confluence, concoction.
Okay. So I've got a weird word. I'm not sure. It's draft.
A draft. A draft is a drink.
Okay.
So you can go quite literally and buy a draft beer or a draft of beer, which generally means a large mug of a beer on tap. It's a drink. Slightly
Okay.
old-fashioned word, but a drink. So if I give you a healing draft, you have to drink it for it to
Okay.
work.
And a tonic.
A tonic, usually you don't drink in the sense of have a large cupful. Tonics generally are like a teaspoon of.
Okay.
Whereas draft implies a larger quantity. And then a salve is external use. It's like
Okay.
a cream.
So drugs.
Yeah.
Drugs. And what can drugs be? Liquid.
Drugs can be anything pharmacological. All medicine that you take either is applied on you or drunk in you or whatever, taken in pill form, all of that is drugs. It is a
In pill form.
in anything that is a concoction designed to be have an
Consumed.
effect on you. Not just consumed, because I can use drugs in a salve externally. I can
Okay.
use
What
drugs,
about
but they're a thing done on you with chemicals or herbs in order to achieve an effect.
okay? So a skincare cream.
Is a drug. If I give you something in an IV or in an injection, it's a drug. If you drink it or take it, it's a drug.
Okay.
And in some cases in history, if you smoke it or breathe it in, it's a drug.
Okay. A health potion is a drug.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. No, I know very clearly you do not have to just drink it or swallow it. You can also inhale it.
Inhale it, apply it, yes.
Yeah. What about eye drops?
Still a drug. Drug is a generic term for a concoction that is designed to have an effect, usually medical, on the body. So if you go into a sauna and I put something in the water that you put on the hot rocks to make the steam, and you have a steam bath with medicated steam, that's a drug.
Okay, so what about food?
Do you take it into your body?
You do?
Then it has a drugging effect, dependent on what it is. You can eat certain things for good health.
Okay, so you need to consume it to make it a drug.
No, if I put a skin cream on you, it's also a drug.
But you still consume it.
Well, let us say it is applied to you in some way, internally or externally. For the
Well,
reason of...
it goes into you. Just like inhaling something,
Correct.
it goes into you.
Yes, for the effect of having a chemical reaction in your body, usually, but not exclusively, to benefit your health.
Yeah, but it also, you need to consume it because it can't just be magic or spells.
That would not be considered a drug, no. So as long as it is an alchemically manufactured thing, it can be a drug. But when you start talking about purely verbal spells, they are not drugs. Therein comes the difference.
Verbal spells.
So, yeah, so even if I cast a spell verbally to have an effect on you, it's not a drug. Because drugs contain physical elements that must be somehow applied to you by whatever means. I can't leave the medicine in the same room and have it affect you unless it's a vapor. It works by direct application in some manner.
Okay, but I'm sure you can't call everything you consume drugs.
No, but we don't consume everything for reasons of affecting the body. Sometimes we just do it because we're hungry. And the act of eating doesn't necessarily refer to the use of a drug. It's just there because you're hungry and you eat. So if you...
But it do make changes to your body if you eat.
Well,
but I don't think you can call it a drug.
No. So the viewpoint is different. Though, in the modern day, and with the advent of what we would refer to as sports medicine, we now know that a lot more foods have varied effects in varied ways. And so different people wanting to excel at different sports, etc., will eat more of certain things and less of others in order to affect the body. So it becomes drug related.
Yeah. But I should probably do research on how to use different words like concoction. I'm sure you can use concoction on different things as well, like concocting, making a salad.
Yes, to a certain degree, that is true. You do make a certain kind of concoction when you make a salad because you're putting varied herbs, spices, liquids, and stuff all together and mixing it all up.
Uh,
So,
so,
yes.
who uses alchemy other than people? Fairies, angels, demons.
That I don't actually know. It is alleged in the Islamic Golden Age that the jinn did and had great knowledge about it because certain people contacted the jinn in order to get more knowledge in their stories. Alchemy was not really a thing at the time of the height of the fairy in Europe, so whether or not they did or didn't was never recorded or mentioned, though a great number of witches were said to have a high knowledge of potions and things. But then again, remember, the problem is the use of words. We only started referring to alchemy in the Western world much later. But it didn't mean people weren't basically doing it, we just didn't call it that. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like I say, if you're making a concoction, as long as it is a mixture of varied things, it kind of is a concoction.
So words like chemistry and alchemy,
Yes.
it is it's a practice.
Well, yes, it comes from the same root word which ultimately came from the Greek, which meant the art of doing something.
Okay. Well, previously I asked you who creates or who uses alchemy or maybe even chemistry. Then I mentioned some mystical names, but what about just animals?
I have never known of an animal deliberately doing anything like that. No. And I
Okay.
certainly haven't turned up anything in any research.
Can you tell me more about biochemistry?
Well, biochemistry is a very modern thing, and it has to do with the way that the different chemical reactions happen inside of a living thing, whether it's as basic as a plant, such as photosynthesis, or as complex as a human being, such as the way electrical impulses fire through the brain, which you can read with an electrocardiogram.
Okay. So certain animals might use chemistry unwillingly, like maybe plants creating some sort of toxic, or maybe a snake creating venom using biochemistry or whatever. That's
Well,
some.
I would say that, and I stand corrected on this, but I would say that it's probably true to say that while the process is considered to be biochemistry, we cannot claim that the animal does biochemistry because it is an automatic, natural thing in them, not a deliberate choice to go and find a laboratory and have a go at it.
Yes, it's like practicing how to make a stronger venom.
Yeah, Whereas if you go and do alchemy, you deliberately are going and doing something that will not naturally happen just on its own.
Yeah. And I mean, it's still a practice. I mean, a chemist that even sell drugs and sell its medicine and stuff like that, they're still practicing, trying to make a better, stronger drug.
Yes, absolutely. We use different words because we want to, in the modern day, disassociate ourselves from the theological and esoteric connections that it had in the past because of the Reformation, which never really stopped in many ways, at least in certain fields.
Okay, so a vaccine.
Yeah.
Yeah, can okay, so humans make vaccines, but can animals also create a vaccine?
I have no
A
clue
natural vaccine?
whatsoever. I do know that vaccines are not considered exactly a drug directly, because whereas drug is a mixture of different other things to counter a problem, a vaccine is made from the cause of the problem itself in order to counter the problem. So your anti-venom is made from venom, and therefore it counts as a vaccine. Your anti-smallpox vaccine is made from smallpox culture.
Okay, so chemicals. Drugs can only be chemicals.
No, more a case, I think, would be it's things that are not the same as the thing you're trying to cure. We refer to it as a vaccine because it is literally the thing we're trying to cure that's been modified. So if I give you peppermint to soothe your cough, the cough has got nothing to do with the peppermint, so it's a drug. Whereas if I give you a flu vaccine, it's made from the flu.
Okay, it modifies the flu.
Correct. Which is a very different sort of situation.
Okay.
So yeah, quite a complicated topic with a lot to talk about. And yes, I must go and look up the base equipment so I can tell you guys what it is and what it does. Obviously, your pestle and mortar, your most basic item, is used even today and is used to grind shit up. That's what it does. And absolutely fundamental to all science. So,
Can you create potions to chase off creatures?
of course you can. We use them today. Pepper spray,
Okay.
citronella candles,
What is pepper spray made out of?
capsicum, mostly.
Okay. Can I maybe get a skunk spray?
You wouldn't be popular if you sprayed it. I'm just saying you would not be popular. Technically, yes. Absolutely.
Well, skunk spray is used to chase away animals or a threat, I'm guessing.
Yes, but mostly because it stinks so unbelievably badly that just being near you would make me vomit.
Okay.
Now-
So is that why the skunks use it?
Yes, That's why it works.
They want to
Whereas
spray it in your face.
anywhere doesn't matter. Whereas your capsicum works mostly when sprayed in your eyes. That's the point. It burns. But it's short-lived and doesn't smell truly horrible. Whereas skunk spray lasts for weeks, smells literally vomit-worthy, and you really, really don't want it on you.
Okay. Cocktails, it's not just a drink, an
Correct.
alcohol beverage.
Correct.
Cocktails can also be used as a potion, I'm guessing.
And many alcohols that we now have as drinks were originally not drinks, they were medicines, they were potions.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But words like they change over time.
Yes, so made to be tastier. Welcome, Moon. Happy New Year. Greetings to you as well. So yes, alcohols, absolutely. I mean, absinthe was originally a medicine. Coca-Cola was originally a medicine. Trying to think what else. There's a whole collection of drinks that we now drink. They've been made tastier, and certain things have had stuff removed. Coca-Cola. But yeah, a lot of alcohols began their lives as medicines, and people kind of liked them and tweaked them to be tastier and then got drunk on them.
Yeah, well, if you look at some syrups that you drink, it's got alcohol percentages in it.
Yes, absolutely. Licorice root in alcohol started as a medicine, has become a drink, but is still used as a medicine as well. I mean, absolutely.
Okay. So, is there a difference between adding the word engineer behind chemicals, like a chemical engineer?
Mostly, when you see things like that, it's because we're talking about a specific kind of thing that they are doing within the field. So, large production chemistry, not research so much, but mostly large production, is done by a chemical engineer. Not that the process or what they're doing is much different, but the field in which they are working is different.
Okay. But you probably don't have to add the engineer at the part. I mean, you can just say a chemist. Well, chemist probably doesn't really do everything. Can I say a chemist is making perfume?
Yes. You see, the problem nowadays is we often will say, oh, I'm going to the chemist to pick up some medicine. Actually, no, you're not. You're going to the pharmacy to pick up some medicine. If you want to be accurate. Yes, they are a purveyor of chemical things, but they are specifically medical chemical, and therefore it's a pharmacy, not a chemist.
Okay.
The modern age likes to be specific.
So, yeah, people would probably not use the word chemist to describe somebody that makes perfumes.
Yes, because it's not a
They
medicine.
would probably say a chemical engineer.
If it's bulk.
Okay. So you're saying chemical engineer is the mass production of chemicals?
Usually, yes.
Okay.
But again, it's like argue, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Does it really make that much of a difference? Not really. If you're
But
working,
chemistry is a beautiful thing to get into, because what else can you actually do with it?
oh, you can do virtually anything.
You can make light bulbs.
Yes,
Can you make electricity?
yes.
No.
The very early forms of electricity were entirely due to chemistry. Batteries that we use today use exactly the same basic idea that was developed in ancient Egypt. Purer, more efficient, maybe, but it's the same.
Okay. So chemistry actually plays a very big role in
Everything,
our lives. Yeah,
everything.
in everything.
Even certain forms of cooking is chemistry, where you are blending flavors and this and that to create something. Yeah,
But chemistry doesn't necessarily mean just things that you might consume. I mean, chemistry also means
well, in its broadest term, anything that causes some kind of a reaction to get a result is chemistry of a form.
in certain ways, because some chemistry you create batteries with it, like,
Yes,
but some batteries you probably do not need chemistry. I'm not sure.
if it's a
No,
battery,
you
it
probably
uses
do.
chemistry.
Yes,
Because you're
because
creating a chemical. So you get two kinds of science. You get chemistry, where any kind of reaction is caused. And then it's divided into tons and tons of different forms of chemistry, but nevertheless. Then you get physical science, which has to do essentially with motion.
okay. Is it okay if I say that chemistry is the study of materials?
Very much
Ooh.
so. Because I can't know what will react with something else if I don't understand the material.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely.
So creating like a stronger steel,
Yes.
you need to know chemistry.
Yes, because not only are you blending different metals, you're also causing them to react based on variegated heating and cooling, the refinement and quantity of which metals where, to cause it to gain certain levels of resistance to corrosion, certain amounts of spring to its composition, and how hard it is. All of that comes through chemistry.
Okay.
I mean, you
What
could.
about
What about?
no, I wanted to jump to weather patterns, looking at rain and stuff like that.
To a certain.
It's,
No, it is. To a certain degree, it is a combination of things. So the change in temperature and the absorption of moisture into the air, or not, as may well be, absolutely, that is a form of chemistry.
yeah. Well, there certainly are a chemical reaction that's happening.
Exactly. So it plays a role. And when they were doing those experiments of cloud seeding and all of that, they were trying to artificially recreate the chemical reactions that cause the production of thunderclouds so that they could make it rain.
And it was effective.
Eh, partly.
Well, people use different chemicals to make plants even grow faster or grow healthier.
Biochemistry is absolutely part of what you do when you create fertilizers and stuff. Totally. So the distinction that I made earlier, my mother was an organic chemist. My father was an inorganic chemist. So his branching off went into those chemical things that were not organic. If you go into organic chemistry, it will involve a whole collection of things that involve anything organic, and a subgroup of that, or a specialization, would be pharmacology, because you're working with the human body.
But chemistry, it sounds, it's too large for a
That's-
person to learn everything.
Oh, absolutely, and that's exactly why we separate things out these days.
You have to go into different fields. You can't just learn everything.
So my father had nothing to do with medicine at all, but he was a chemist. My
Can
mother,
a chemical engineer create a atomic bomb?
they did.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. Nuclear fusion, it's got
Yeah.
to do with chemistry, I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so chemistry, you probably can't create, somebody that creates medicine probably can't build a
Atomic bomb.
nuclear bomb.
No.
Yeah.
So it's a separate bit. So even though a pharmacologist is going to be an organic chemist, my mother was an organic chemist, but she had nothing to do with medicine.
It's just weed.
What she did had to do with alcohol productions and plant things, but not medical. So she could brew you a great beer, and she had things to do with growing plants and what have you, which is all organic, but she was not a pharmacologist. Specializations have got more and more and more and more accurate.
And there's probably so many fields.
Yes, there are, absolutely. And blended fields. So if you go into, say, the science of making a rocket for NASA, it will be a combination of physical sciences and chemical sciences.
Okay.
But you would specialize in what makes a rocket rockety. Because you're dealing with angles, trajectories, lift, but also fuels, chemicals, and all of that. The outer skins of the spacecraft will have to be made of special things. Why? Because of heat stress, connections, every bit of glue, every stud or nail, every bit of paint, all of that has to be worked out.
I can't hear you. You mean?
You don't want to be halfway up and then suddenly realize, shit, I used the wrong
Yeah.
metal here and now it's fallen apart and I'm halfway to the moon.
Yeah. So you need to be some sort of chemist to create like an anti-rust.
And some sort of physicist.
Okay. If you want to make plastic.
Well, making plastic, of course, is a chemical reaction.
Okay.
So plastics, yeah, sure, chemical.
And if I want to create bait, or I'm not sure what words to use, odor, I don't know.
What, like scented lures like they use in deer hunting?
I don't know. Is this word?
Yeah,
It's chemistry,
guessing so.
space chemistry, biochemistry, in fact. So yeah, it applies to pretty much everything, and all of it stemmed from alchemy. And with that said, we are 45 minutes over our normal, so we will go further with this tomorrow at 10
Yeah.
o'clock South
I'm not
African
sure how I
time.
should treat your channel.
Why?
Are you like a learning channel, a teaching channel?
If it is weird,
Are you a teacher?
if it is weird or curious, or you would like to know more, usually the creepier, weirder stuff, like the supernatural and paranormal, but there's a lot of things in the world that we can learn, and if it is curious and weird or wonderful, we can look at it. We
Okay.
like doing
But I
ghosts
come here
and
to learn
aliens.
and to debate.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, no, this is, it's
The only things that we avoid are the kind of things that will get us into huge amounts of trouble because it's illegal on social media.
Yeah. Oh, I've watched that movie you mentioned. I'm not sure. I can't remember why you said I should watch it, but I looked at it. The Book of Eli.
Yes, the Book of Eli.
Eli.
Yes,
Yeah. Well,
survival basics.
yeah, I was very, very surprised at the end when I found
Right.
out he was actually blind. Yeah.
Yes, it was a very good twist. And he is a damn good actor.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, the whole point was that special knowledge and why it mattered.
okay. Plus points at least.
Yeah. But it also made me think about how many times the Bible has been actually rewritten. The Bible lost completely. Somebody had to write it with the memory they had.
There you are. And that too is quite
Yeah.
important. The history of what we call holy writings world over is quite a serious issue for a lot of reasons. And I know when I did my studies, I threw away all of my Bibles except for one in English, because all of them were crappy translations, except one which I trusted. And I used that one, and I used the one that I had from the original text that was still in the original text.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
there
Well,
are,
you should have a good night.
I will very much so indeed. And you too, sir, sleep well, and I hope I will see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Cool.
Fantastic.
Cheers.
Cheers, cheers, be good.
Yeah,
Thanks to everybody for joining in. I hope you all had a wonderful one. And see you tomorrow, 10 o'clock South African time. And if you can't sit up all the time and watch these things, do remember you can find them on YouTube as well as recordings. Cheers, cheers, cheers.
thank you.